Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Broads. Since the Phillies have an off day, I think it's a perfect time to do a show on the Eagles' 53-man roster. Now, unfortunately, from an entertainment standpoint, I'd be lying if I said that there was a lot to dive into, right? There was a lot of beef here. There was nothing that really concerned me heavily. They have to figure out who's going to punt. They have to figure out who is going to return. But if you told me those were the biggest question marks on your team heading into a season with the goal being let's win a Lombardi trophy, you're at a damn good spot for week one. This won't hinder Jalen Hurts. This won't stop A.J. Brown. This won't make Devontae Smith now not know how to toe tap by the sidelines. They are in a great position, and there are some things to tweak, and you do need to realize that Howie Roseman still has time to start plugging away and looking at different options, but I'm not going to waste a lot of my breath on some of, and I don't know if there really is that much, but I'll say negativity towards cutting Trey Sermon or Kayvon Wallace not being here. I'm sorry, but that won't stop this team from attacking this business trip of a year and trying to win that championship. They're too dominant. They're too good. They're too lethal. Let's take a look at it. So what I decided to do, and I normally don't do this, but I went to the Eagles website and I printed out your 53-man roster, and we will go through it position by position. Some have juice, some don't. Quarterback room, there's not much to it, right? Jalen Hurts, Marcus Mariota, and Tanner McKee. If you heard me after the final preseason game, and if you listen to that show, I did change my tone on Marcus Mariota. I have more faith now than I did maybe after the first preseason game or the second preseason game if I needed him to win us one or two games. Because what he was playing out there with is not the top dogs. It's not your top roster positions. And while he did struggle to throw the football, and that is a quarterback's job, if you just based Gardner Minshew off of his final game that he played before Jalen Hurts stepped back in to beat the Giants to secure the spot in the NFC last season, if you only judged him off that one game, you would have never thought in a billion years he'd be able to produce the game before when they saw the Dallas Cowboys. So he sucked against the Saints in arguably the worst I've ever seen, not even worthy of putting on an NFL jersey. He looked like Carson Wentz when Carson Wentz forgot how to play the position. It was that awful. But the week before, he was scoring points left and right, and that's what a backup quarterback is. Unfortunately, it is a position of inconsistency, because if you were consistent at your job and if you were good in a lot of areas, then you'd probably start somewhere and a team would have taken a shot on you and given you more time. So that's the separation, is consistency. That's what makes you a starter in this league compared to not. On top of, being maybe like an Aaron Rodgers, having a gunslinger and then having someone like that, skill level plays a role too, of course, but I'm just saying the inconsistent factor is part of being a backup quarterback. And the question is, if you need him for 2 games, can you do that 2 games in a row, or is it one good, one bad? Is it both bad? I don't know, but the more and more I kind of break it down, I'm willing to give him at least a chance before I completely rule him out from being able to do something reasonable if needed in a regular season. Is that fair? I think so. Is the running back room fair? Kenneth Gainwell, Penny, Boston Scott, DeAndre Swift. It sucks for Trey Sermon, but you're in a room where there's a lot of talent and there's a ton of good backs. I like what they can do. I hope that Penny can stay upright this season. And because you're going to mix in multiple different dudes and give them a lot of different touches, well, then maybe that allows for his body to not break down, and so he doesn't get injured, and then he can last longer, because there is something special about when he has the football. He can do damage when he is tying up the cleats and playing. It's just, well, over time, it has shown that he has had a difficult time doing that because his body would sort of fall apart on him. Well, if you go to Swift, if you utilize him in the passing game, him and Kenneth Gainwell in the passing game, I'm excited to see Boston Scott play against the New York Giants because that's automatic money on any of your sports books, and you know you can cash out with an anytime touchdown. That's magnificent stuff. I'm excited for these four, and I'm excited to see what Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson can do in an offense that allows for you to pass the ball to your running backs because he was not capable of doing that with Miles Sanders last year. And while this offense was flying and they were scoring points and they could drop a 30-burger on you with the blink of an eye, they actually lost a step because of how inefficient Miles Sanders was in that area. You could even be more lethal, that much more of a threat, that much harder if you are an opposing defensive coordinator, if you have to be worried and concerned about something with DeAndre Swift or Kenneth Gainwell. So let Gainwell continue that surge that we saw at the end of last year. In the postseason, he was one of your most reliable backs, okay? Miles Sanders flops in the final game, and he's fumbling the football backwards, getting popped out of bounds. Absolutely unacceptable, but Gainwell put his head down and he showed Nick Sirianni, yo, you can rely on me, all right? I'm not just some guy that once in a while you filter me in. Call my number. Go to me. Watch. And I think he can, and I think he will take even a bigger step from last year. Confidence goes a long way, and it's hard to feel down after you put yourself on notice like you did in the Super Bowl. Wide receivers, only 4. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and Zacchaeus. So, I don't know. I mean, you talk about what can you do returning, and you see Covey back and all that stuff, and I don't know what they do, but sometimes, once in a blue moon, someone throws Quez Watkins your way, or someone throws Zacchaeus your way. None of these really move the needle for me. If anything, what they have right now is a bunch of guys that can just maybe get you by. They don't have a real option. It's all get you by options. And then we're starting to scream and debate and yell and argue about which get by returner is the best to go with. That's what happens when there's not someone who's solidified in that area. I don't know what they do, and this might be a horrible answer for you, considering that my job is to talk about this, but I really don't have much fire in me for it until I see what they do, and it might be elevating Covey a few times, and they might do that, and the dude gets popped every time. I feel like his entire body is going to break off in 7 different pieces, and his head is going to decapitate off of his body when he gets hit hard every single time. It's unbelievable that he's able to not break. Anyway, what do? I don't know. I'll scream when I get there. I just think this team is too much of a monster to cry about it currently. But only 4 wide receivers. I think you're going to see something different happen with this roster. They brought back Greg. That sounded like scary-ass music. That sounded like we're getting chased down by the dude from Halloween. What's his name? Michael Myers, didn't it? I guess hopefully that's not bad juju. Hopefully that's not bad karma talking about our 4 wide receivers. But Greg Ward gets brought back to the practice squad. Mr. Reliable. Guy's been here since 1962, taking practice squad snaps. And he's not a bad option to have back there, but it is interesting to only see the 4 wide receivers. 4 tight ends. I don't know if 4 tight ends are going to fully be on here. You know Goddard is. They made a trade for Albert O. I'm not going to pretend like I know how to pronounce his last name, but it seems like Albert O will be the nickname. Between Stoll and Calcantara, though, one of those might be getting cut, and they might move on from him. I don't know if they need fully 4 tight ends. Offensive line, they cut Dennis Kelly and Josh Sills. I thought Dennis Kelly, when the signing happened, that he could be a reasonable option to swing around your offensive line whenever need be. What side can he play? What side do you need? I'll raise my hand and I'll be there. That's kind of the approach I thought Dennis Kelly would have, and it just didn't really pan out. He didn't look as good as I thought for a veteran who's been around the block and has logged in a bunch of snaps in this league. So you have Tyler Steen, Opeta. We know about your starters. Fred Johnson is on there. And not much to it. The edge rushers, okay, this is where I think that there's some more talking points. And I apologize if this isn't sexy. I told you from the start that this wasn't going to be sexy because, well, there's not much to it. But, with your edge rushers, Derek Barnett, there was the report about him possibly being able to look for a trade because maybe his role wasn't going to be very big and he wouldn't get a lot of snaps with the type of talent they have at that position. In theory, you'd think fine. This is where I think Derek Barnett might be needed a strong word, but nice to have early in the season. Hassan Reddick is dealing with an injury on his thumb right now. I think that's more manageable than what's happening with Nolan Smith. Nick Sirianni said he didn't want to put any false expectations on the return for Nolan Smith. We saw him walking to the sidelines with his shoulder really hanging down, and he looked extremely uncomfortable in one of those preseason games before they yanked him and stopped putting him out there. Are they going to be ready for week one? And is it bad if Derek Barnett, compared to some other options around the NFL, if that's the spot where you might need to call his number just a tad more? You might have to lean on him a little bit just because not everyone is up to their full capabilities to start the season. Or am I reaching and am I asking too much? I have more confidence in Hassan Reddick. He seems so damn hungry. He's already making comments about the 49ers rematch, and I like that because it's very, I'm just curious, once we get there and we have a long period of time until we do, you know the 49ers are going to be up. I want to see the Eagles match that. Publicly, well, we're not worried about it, this and that, and right now I think that's a fair answer, but when the game actually comes up, and it is that week, I want them to respond. I want them to rise to the occasion. I want them to match that level of hatred and match all the bullshit that's been going on with them still running their mouths. I want it all. I want that to continue, and I want them to have that fire against a team that hates you so much, because if you don't, then that's normally when you get smoked, and I don't think that's going to happen, but I love the fact that Reddick is already letting everyone know this is something I care about. When we get there, I'm going to focus on it. There's nothing more emotional this regular season. That one stands out to me. Let's have at it. I love that statement early on. I got no problem with it at all. I just wonder, though, is Derek Barnett going to be useful? Now, hopefully he's not taking any stupid penalties. We're not seeing a 15-yarder because he's taken down the quarterback from his knees super late after the ball was already thrown 5 seconds ago. That would be killer. And then at that point, yeah, absolutely, then there should be someone else getting that time. And we kind of already probably see it happening because, well, it's happened for how many seasons now? There's never been a season where he wasn't that annoying and that frustrating to watch. So what would change this deep into his career? Probably nothing. It's more about the numbers. It's more about the amount of bodies that you have. And I wonder, too, I was going to put this out for an Eagles in or out, and I might still do that on my Twitter page. But in or out, Brandon Graham will record more sacks than Josh Sweat next season. They both had 11 last year. So just so you can have that to put in the back of your head as you think about it. Your defensive tackles, what's Milton Williams? I'm very fascinated to see what Milton Williams is. I don't know what Jordan Davis will be this season. We all loved the pictures we saw early on in camp where he just looked different with his body type. Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, Jomo made it. Contavious Street. And linebackers, only 3 linebackers. Cunningham, Nakobe Dean, and Christian Ellis. Cornerbacks. Okay, here's another talking point with your cornerbacks. They have 7. James Bradbury, Josh Jobe, Avonte Maddox, Eli Ricks made the team. Okay, this was my thought and my takeaway from all of these corners. And I'm talking specifically the young ones. Ringo, right? Those type of guys that had a high pedigree in college football or was a high-level recruit, maybe didn't pan out, played at LSU, played at Alabama. There's a lot of that right now. It seems like they have 5,000 darts sitting in their holster, and they're able to take a bunch of different dart throws and take a bunch of different hacks and see if some of these hit. This is my thought process. We know where Darius Slay is in his career. We know where James Bradbury is in his career, and still stunned that Howie was able to bring back those two, both of those two, and run this back with your outside corners that way. How many years has it been since they have taken a first-round cornerback? And how long have we been aggravated with him not looking for that? I think they're trying to steal one in a different way so they can keep going offensive line. They can keep going defensive line. They can look for a Devontae Smith. They can utilize their assets in other positions and then find a corner, groom them, grow them, and hope that one of these become a massive star because they do have the potential to be, in theory, with their skill set. And that's what Howie's trying to do. So you get a lot of different chances. You get a lot of different high-caliber athletes, and you pray that one can develop and be a Darius Slay, and they are an undrafted guy, or you pick them late in the draft, and you just see what they can do over a 2-year span, and if that's enough for you to say, let's keep rolling with this, you do. If it hits a wall like Kayvon Wallace, unfortunately, we're not going to move forward with you. I'm just wondering if that's what they're doing, and that's sort of what hit me first. That's what struck when looking at all the young talent in the room. And if it works, it works. That's great. The thing is, Howie, if it doesn't work, then you can't be afraid to pull the trigger on someone who is a no-brainer lock to play the outside coming out of Alabama as a first-round talent. You can't be scared and you can't be worried about using a high pick on that spot. For some reason, he's just unwilling. He doesn't want to. He doesn't believe in it. He'll never buy into it. He wants to do something else, and it's hard to knock that. I love our trenches. Part of the reason why I feel like we can go out and kick anybody's ass is because the O-line, D-line. By week 5, week 6, week 7, when we do our Football Friday shows and we talk about what the X's and O's are, I'm going to be a broken record. I'm already telling you that now. Well, let's look at Jason Kelce. Do you want to look at Lane Johnson? Let's talk about our left guard, Landon Dickerson, who's playing in between Kelce and, oh, by the way, Jordan Mailata, who is a specimen, right? You will win because the other team is not going to get a lot of pressure. Lather, rinse, repeat. That's what it is. So part of what they want to do is look with the opposite side. Their defensive ends can create pressure because the opposing offensive line won't succeed. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, they're going to eat up space in the middle. Teams will become one-dimensional. And then here's our secondary. Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, they're going to take away space. They'll be flying around. See what I'm saying here? That's the bread and butter. They put more emphasis on that than the corner. At some point, though, you'd think you would have to. But if one of these guys step up and be awesome, then Howie Roseman buys more time with it. Here's your safeties. Justin Evans, Edmonds, Brown, Blankenship. I didn't see Kayvon getting cut. I didn't. Now, I did listen to Eagle Eye Pod, which is Dave Zangaro and Ruben Frank, and they have a lot of eyeballs on these practices. They see a lot more than we do, and, you know, they get to watch a lot more of the details and the day-to-day grind. They didn't seem as surprised as I did by it, and, you know, maybe that makes me wonder, does this make a lot more sense? And I won't cry about it. You know, if someone was to go down, is it nice to have it? Kayvon Wallace, who I thought had a nice camp and made a lot of tackles, but I remember even bringing this up during one of the preseason post-game shows. Man, Kayvon Wallace was playing deep into the fourth quarter. He was getting a lot of time late when most guys who make the team are already plucked away and they're sitting on the sidelines watching others compete for a roster spot. I thought that was surprising. So maybe it made a lot of sense, and I should have read through the tea leaves more. So linebacker, only 3 linebackers. We'll see. Miles Jack retiring didn't really help out anything. You know, we'll see. We'll see. It's hard to be upset about anything right now, though. I think if you are, it's manufactured. You want to find something to talk about. You want to find an angle. Sometimes it's not there. And I'm always willing to search. I'm willing to dig. I did for 2 positions. Defensive end for the beginning stages of the season when some guys who are injured are working themselves back. and that would be Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith. And the Nolan Smith thing, I do have concern on where he's at. And I did see some pictures of him practicing. I did see some of the guys who cover the team put up a picture of him with his pads on and the helmet, so he is out there. But just hearing the way that Sirianni spoke, it didn't put a ton of confidence in me that he'll be back maybe the same time that Hassan Reddick will be, and he'll be flowing. Maybe they're trying to downplay it to the media, and there's more talk internally about where he is. Not that it'll be anything massive and hold him out super, super, super long, but I think it is a very reasonable to maybe expect him to miss a couple weeks to start the season. I don't know. Maybe we gather more information as we get closer, but we're pretty damn close, fellas. We're ready to flip the calendar, and it be September, and they will be kicking that football off September 10th, and it'll be buffalo chicken dip time. And I got I went for the Dunkin' pumpkin coffee, tried that today. Didn't tickle my fancy as much as the pumpkin cream cold brew from Starbucks does. But, you got to roll with the punches. My point is, it'll be fall. You'll have the candles lit, the pumpkin candles. You'll put the pumpkin stuff outside on your front patio, and we'll be there before you know it. So it's really not that far away. And maybe he does miss a little bit of time, and you figure it out from there. Maybe Barnett can hold the fort down, and then what was the other one I mentioned? So really the two things I looked at, the cornerback thing. That's it. That's all that's there. It's a really good spot to be in. Go listen to what they're saying about Bill Belichick and the quarterback room, what they're doing there. Go listen to what some of these other teams are doing. The Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones not even communicating with some of the prominent people in the organization, and they're making trades for Trey Lance, and Dak Prescott openly admits publicly that, I wasn't informed about this. I don't know how I feel about this. They're a dumpster fire. They had to work through some contract stuff, which they did, with their offensive line and all, but Dak Prescott, they are ready to run him out the door. And it's funny, you're going to be hearing Cowboys fans who, they put Dak Prescott in this tier of great and are unwilling to admit that he throws too many interceptions. He's got a turnover problem, while our quarterback here doesn't know what turnovers are. And we're just going to pretend like the fumble in the Super Bowl didn't happen. Historically speaking, Jalen Hurts, he puts his team in good positions, and he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. Dak Prescott does. These people who have defended Dak Prescott for years and years and years and years and always fought back with us, the Eagles fan base, real quickly, they're going to see what we saw and start screaming and demanding to see Trey Lance play. We went through the same thing, okay? We went through the same thing with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles, and the upside for Trey Lance, I'd imagine, is higher than Nick Foles, although nobody can replicate what we saw in those couple of games there in the NFC Championship and Super Bowl. And, oh, man, Nick Foles, what a hero in this town. That's all I have, all right? I'm not going to milk it anymore. That's what I have. Nagata makes the practice squad. Taron Jackson makes the practice squad. Johnson, the linebacker, makes the practice squad. Sipas. Van Sumeren, he was the linebacker that made 1 billion tackles from Michigan State. He made the practice squad. Brett Toth is on the practice squad. Go Birds. This team's going to kick ass this year. Go Birds. Go Birds. Go Birds. Hey, go Birds. Talk to you next time.